I've learned from experience that the place to save lives is in the field, not an office. And sometimes, the only way to save a life is to take one.
What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the 6th Invitational Developer Panel Series. I am once again your host, Justin Kruger, Community Developer on Rainbow Six Siege. And thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We are about to dive into the creative process of Rainbow Six Siege. What does that mean exactly? It means all the things that make an operator, make the map, make the game the coolest game out there right now. And join with me today, we have an amazing panel. To my left is Adam, one of the gameplay programmers on Rainbow Six Siege. What's up, Adam? How's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. What do you think of the event?
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Leroy, what's going on, man? One of our game designers, Leroy. How's everything?
Man, this is like living the dream for me. All those amazing players, it's like...
It's cool, right, to see the esports and all the fans here. It's amazing. And of course, we have Farah, one of our writers on Rainbow Six Siege. What's up, Farah?
I mean, this is amazing having a crew here in Montreal and the people watching us at home. So very cool.
Cool. So today we're going to go into a deep dive into what makes Rainbow Six Siege so incredible in terms of the creative design aspects behind it. And we're going to kick things off with Farah here, the writer on Siege. So tell us a little bit about what you do, and then also I think you have a video for us, right?
Yeah, I prepared a very cool treat for all of you guys. We have a video behind the scenes so that you can have a little peek of what it's like to make that happen.
All right, let's take a look. Damn, that is awesome. That is so cool. Now
Thanks.
explain to us what exactly was going on in there.
So basically, this is showcasing how we treat realism in the game. We try to have like a good ratio of 80% realism and 20% fiction to have a really exciting gameplay. And this was us actually working with experts in the field, having them there just to get the real details in terms of how to hold a gun, for example, how to do rappel while you're on the field. So get the.
That's really cool. So this is one way we approach realism.
Yeah.
Now, as a writer, how do you bring these characters into the real world?
Yeah, so there's a lot of research involved, and of course there's a huge collaboration with everyone who's involved in the project. For example, the man on my right, Leroy, who's charged of the gameplay. So there's a ongoing discussion as to what inspires us equally in terms of gameplay and playstyle, as opposed to what the CTUs are famous for on the field.
So in terms of what comes first, is it narrative? Is it personality? Is it game design? It's kind of a mix of the two,
It
right?
definitely is, yeah.
It's more back and forth, you know, depending of the CTU, of the gameplay, sometimes we have a specific thing in mind and we ask Farah to find something that fit or.
Yeah,
something
definitely.
So, Farah, how do we bring those characters to life? Because I mean, we just saw Tachanka's voice actor out here doing
such a
his thing,
blessing, right? Yeah.
blowing the roof off this place.
I know.
He has so much energy, but he's such a nice guy too.
He's amazing,
He's
yeah.
incredible.
With his time, it's great. He was just walking around hanging out
Yeah,
before.
huge shout out to Anatoly.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, you get to work with voice actors like Anatoly, and how do you work with them to bring these operators to life with just a few lines, right?
Yeah, it's all about layers, right? So we start with having a concept in terms of gameplay, and we discuss what kind of persona that could be best suited for those strengths and weaknesses. And then we layer it up with some cool factual thing from their past, and we try to create that web of operators out there to create that world, to make sure that there are some cool interactions, like for example what happened with the Tachanka buff
With Mira, of course.
yeah, we could sneak in a little cool interaction there. So those layers really come up together and create a persona instead of just being an archetype. So.
Yeah, that's great. And now you mentioned strengths or weaknesses of operators as well, and that's when I'm bringing in Leroy. Leroy, I think you're gonna talk to us a little bit about a certain operator that might have gotten a little weaker.
Yeah, exactly. But there is one topic that I wanted to bring here is that everything related to balancing, because this is a huge part of our work, especially on the life aspect of the game. So I bring with me a graph just to represent exactly what we want to achieve in terms of design. So this is a simple graph that show you to date, patch 5.0, that is the release of Red Crow, and the patch 5.2, just after Red Crow. And you have two data. You have the dark curve that shows you the attacker average win rate in ranked, okay? And the yellow one is Blackbird win rate. So we see that the release of Red Crow, Blackbird was way above average, okay? It was a huge issue for us in terms of balancing. He was winning way too much. And so we make this modification, reducing the HP of the shield. And then we saw that after the release of this update, he's still above average. But now it's something that is more close to the position where we want to see all our operators. So that's why we don't like to use the word nerf in game design. We always talk about update and balancing, because we want to have all our operators good, you know, being close to average.
Absolutely, and it's an intentional thing where myself or Craig Epi, we don't use the word nerf or buff in our patch notes because it's more about balancing. It's more about creating that balance. And in terms of what goes into those numbers, so we saw really interesting data there with Blackbeard, where at the start of Red Crow he was super powerful, and then at the end, after the buff with the mid-season reinforcements, he got more average, but still powerful.
Exactly.
Still powerful, right?
That means in the end of good player, it's still a good character, but now you have to pick it for specific map, specific specific location, specific playstyle. It is no more like the no-brainers that, oh, you pick it and you will win every game.
Right.
So that's why in terms of perception, some players feel like, oh, now it's not good anymore and blah, blah, blah. But we see that in terms of win rate, in the good end of good player, and we see him today a lot, in specific situation, he can be really still
That's really
good
cool.
character.
Now, what kind of data do you use to design these operators and also, make these balancing choices?
Actually, we have a super big team of analytic people that are working with us, that are super good and are super involved with the game. This is super important. And basically, every game that are played in Rainbow, we gather all the data from those games and we are looking at them. And for us, this is why it's important. Like it's all our balancing is based on data. So when people are saying crying or asking for nerf or balance on Reddit, we look at the data and only if there is correlation, we act on them. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you have to stop to cry on Reddit because actually it's a good thing because there is a lot of data. Yes. So there is a lot of place where we can look at it. So sometimes we look on Reddit and it drag our attention onto a specific point, and so this is still cool, but only when it's correlated with data we act upon.
So data is the key, right?
Exactly.
It is the key to all of our decision making. But you did mention the community, and how much of the community feedback do you actually incorporate into the operator design?
Honestly, this is what I love so much working on Rainbow. Yeah. It's because to me, I really have the feel that I'm making the game with the community. So I would say really half. That means, yes, we make some design, we make some decision, but half of the feedback of our decision came from either Reddit, either the data, because even the data comes from the community. It's people playing the game that tell us how to modify it, how to balance it, and stuff like that. So I really feel that I'm doing this game with the community.
That's really cool, man, and kind of beautiful as well.
Little tear.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So we're going to move on to Adam, our gameplay programmer on Rainbow Six Siege. What's going on, Adam?
Not too much. Just hanging out.
Now, we talked a little bit about the creation process of the operators and the balancing process of the operators, but talk to us a little bit about some of the recoil and technology that goes into creating these operators.
Yeah, so I work on a lot of like the weapon systems and stuff. So I've actually got a video here to show some stuff with how we develop our recoil for each different weapon. So the recoil is basically just generated from a whole bunch of numbers and stuff in our data. So obviously being able to visualize it is helpful. So we have actually a way in our editor to simulate recoil on a per magazine basis, kind of like we do in the menus, but instead of only showing 5-shot bursts, we show the whole magazine here, and I can show as many simulations as I want all at once. So just to sort of describe what's happening in the video, I'm going to start changing in a second, like a bunch of different properties, like the camera rise and the changes in intensity in the recoil per shot, how much the gun off-centers from the center of the camera, and you can sort of see how drastically just changing a couple numbers can change the way a gun feels entirely.
That's really super interesting, and these kind of tools are the kind of tools that you collaborate on with game design, right, to help with balancing tweaks on certain weapons and items and stuff like that, right? Yeah.
They pretty much just they send me requests and I do what they ask me to do.
Yeah, nice. Very, very cool. And you're constantly working on this though, right? It's not you're one and done. You're constantly trying to improve these things, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the recoil currently hasn't really changed a whole lot since launch, but something that's always been really important to us is to have really intense recoil that's sort of challenging and difficult to master, but based on feedback from our players, we kind of understand that we didn't quite achieve our goals. So we're actually looking at implementing some new stuff to the recoil system, sort of making it more complicated to master each weapon, making each weapon feel more unique. So an idea I had for testing, which we haven't tried yet, it's just something that we might test soon, is making it so that like the weapon's recoil will actually change its data set over time. So like every few shots will change to a different recoil pattern or something like that, so the gun might change direction. Because right now it's like each gun just sort of has one direction that you just sort of, you pull the mouse down and like down and to the left, and that's it. But soon we might have it so that it's more complicated than that.
That's really interesting, and obviously that's a work in progress type thing that isn't coming to the game, but is something you're working on and testing and developing, and something that potentially could come into the game, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Cool. So that's really awesome. Thank you guys so much. We have a few questions from the internets that we'll go to right now. If we can pull up the first question, and it is, do we have plans on bringing back 4 minutes to ranked? I think this is for you,
Yeah,
right?
it's more for me. No, actually, I would say that no.
No.
We are.
That's a clear no.
Nope.
No. We are quite happy with the 3 minutes. Actually, it's in terms of again of data and the win rate and stuff like that. It's really interesting for us. We feel that the experience of Rainbow, it's more intense and there are more things played in that time frame. But we do understand that there is people that are more comfortable with other time frames. So we are again, not doing something, but in the future thinking of how we can have the best of the two worlds and having maybe different time depending of different playlists and stuff like that.
Great. I think much of the very hardcore community really likes and appreciates the 3 minute ranked, right? Because it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go to the second question here. How far in advance do you plan out an operator and their gadgets? And kind of what do you start with, I guess? Yeah.
But how far in advance we could say, like for example, right now we are working on season 7. So I think it gives you in terms of time frame an idea of
definitely.
Yeah.
So
and we keep talking about it as we go along. So it's a really I would say organic creative process.
So right now we're working on 2 seasons in
Exactly.
ahead of us. Okay.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's very clear. So pretty far in advance, almost 6 months in advance, right? Okay, interesting. All right, let's go to the third question. When designing a new operator, where does the team start? So does it start with you, Farah?
Of course, no.
Always starts with you.
It has to. No, it's an ongoing process, and it can be actually we have a lot of brainstorming sessions before, and it can spark something that Leroy could find interesting in terms of play style, or he could mention something about the character that would really inspire me. For example, that happened with Hibana. When you mentioned the play style that she would have, just to have a variant for Thermite, it was a really cool thing that I could bring about with a cool connection to Jordan Trace and his training, and try to link those two together. And
yeah, absolutely. In the Hibana backstory, she gets trained by Thermite, which is
they work together on the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear about that, and and it kind of breathes life into these relationships that build. And that our community builds too, because there was immediately fan art of Hibana and Thermite and Ash as well.
It was so beautiful.
Really cool,
I think within an hour we had a first fan art, and it was Hibana and Thermite with
sparklers.
Sparklers, for sure.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, great. All right, let's go on to our next question here. At one point, it seemed like the defenders were able to move the hostage around. Why was that changed? So I think this is for you, Adam.
Well,
or you may be able to answer it.
Yeah, I was there. I was when this was a thing. From what I understand, we basically it just didn't play test very well. There was balance issues and stuff, especially depending on the map. So like sometimes because the attackers don't know where the hostage is until they spot it. So a lot of the times defenders would just immediately hide the hostage in some random corner of the map or like behind a car or something. And so it just made for like really unsatisfying gameplays where the attackers didn't know where to go essentially. So because the defenders would then just spread out and the attackers had no sense of direction for where they're supposed to go. So.
That's super interesting. Cool. All right, let's go to our next question. Unless that is it. I think there might be one more. Yeah. How did you attribute destructibility to different types of surfaces, and what did it take to implement like caliber-based destruction? I think you've worked on some of the materials, right? And you might have a good answer for this.
Yeah. So we have like a ton of data tagged in all of our walls and stuff in every single map, and so like each different surface has a material sort of attached to it, and the material can define a lot of different things, like how the penetration with the works, like how how many walls a bullet can go through is based on like the types of material it's colliding with and stuff. And each material can also provide different reactions for the destruction. So the artists can kind of play around with that a lot and make it and change it how it looks based on material. For the different caliber thing, it's pretty straightforward. We just have each gun has a different set of caliber set in the data, and then based on the caliber, we have a table of destruction inputs. And so, we just hook up a different destruction input based on what gun shot the wall. So
nice, cool. All right, well, that is it for the creative Q&A. Thank you guys so much to all of you. You guys are awesome, and I love working with all of you. Now, we coming up right up after this, we have the Xbox One semifinal 2 with Lucky 7 and Supremacy, a late addition to the competition. Any bold predictions?
No.
Man, I have to say #baguette, so I have to say Supremacy all the way from.
Allez, baguette. Great. Any other predictions?
I am not risking myself.
All right, let's just end it there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and once again, stay tuned for the Xbox semifinal 2.